to the next in our study of women of the Bible. Today we're looking at two wives of prophets. The first we're looking at is the wife of Ezekiel. Ezekiel's wife is unnamed, but we may assume that she was a godly woman who helped the priest Ezekiel serve the Lord in a colony of Jewish exiles at Tel Aviv on a canal of the Euphrates called Chifa. The details of her life are undisclosed, yet her death was the symbol of Ezekiel's most poignant message depicting the destruction of Israel. Ezekiel's wife was taken quite suddenly in what may have been a stroke. Ezekiel was forewarned of his wife's death, but he was forbidden to display any public sign of mourning. You can read about this in Ezekiel chapter 24 and verses 15 to 17. He was expected to bear his grief silently. Indeed, on the morning of the day that his wife died, the prophet spoke to his people about the coming destruction of Jerusalem. Again, Ezekiel chapter 24 and verses 18 to 21. Just as he was losing his wife, the desire of his eyes, the text says, so Israel would lose God's sanctuary and their loved ones remaining in Jerusalem. The desire of their eyes. Again, verses 16 and 21 of Ezekiel 24. The people were instructed to restrain their grief as well. In this sense, Ezekiel and his wife became a heartbreaking sign to God's people of the grief and the loss that they would endure. The second wife that we're looking at is Gomer, from the book and from the life of the prophet Hosea. And similar to Ezekiel's wife, but perhaps even more explicit, we see a symbolic relationship here between God and his chosen people, Israel, symbolized through the marriage of Hosea and Gomer. So during a time when the nation of Israel defiantly turned her back on God and gave herself to idolatry, God called Hosea to pursue an unusual prophetic role among his people. Hosea's job was to prophesy, both by words and actions. He was commanded to marry Gomer, Hosea chapter 1 and verse 2. Gomer was apparently pure when she married Hosea, but it seems that she had perhaps harlotry in her heart. The life of Hosea and Gomer had together was symbolic of the relationship between God and his people. Gomer conducted her harlotry in a shamefully flagrant manner, at least judging from Hosea's descriptions. What drove her to this sin? Whatever her reasons, the consequences of her actions, especially the agony that she caused her husband and children, which we can read about in Hosea chapter 2, were the unavoidable realities of her selfish behavior. Gomer sought her own enjoyment so irresponsibly that she ultimately wound up in some form of slavery or servitude or bondage from which she had to be redeemed. See Hosea chapter 3 and verses 1 to 3. As Hosea paid the price for her and took her back to himself, he restored her as his wife after a preliminary period of discipline to help her direct her life afresh to the vows that she had made to Hosea in marriage. The meaning for all who love God is profound. God himself likewise paid the price to redeem his people, demonstrating that the aim of his love is reconciliation, restoration, and forgiveness. Titus chapter 2 and verse 14 makes this plain. Thanks very much.